Welcome back, everyone. By now, we have been getting familiar with the AAA structure, or strophic form. Now, it's time to look at compositions that are using contrasting or secondary themes to make a little break between the main themes of the track. So the main role of a secondary theme is to usually create some kind of contrasting element to the main themes. If you're writing in an AABA form, the B theme would be a new element introduced before the final repetition of the main theme, the climax. If you were to eliminate the B theme, your composition would maybe risk ending up too repetitive. The B section might act as a necessary break between the existing elements, creating a good balance between repetition and change. Let's quickly listen to one of my tracks, Everlasting, which is structured in this way. As you can hear, we have a main theme that is first being presented here. Now, after the presentation of the main theme, we get a little contrasting break with something new. And you can also see that the dynamic, we're taking everything down, making it a bit more calm before we get to the climax section. And after this contrasting B section, we get over to the A theme again, now stronger than ever, before we get a little piano outro, also with the A theme, or the main theme. Now, we're going to get into some specific tools for coming up with nice secondary themes and making secondary themes that are effective. First of all, I want you to keep in mind that a lot of time you don't really need to approach the writing too structured. To me personally, whenever I feel my track needs a secondary theme after my main theme, this theme tends to kind of create itself. At least the general nature of it. A lot of times the gut feeling will guide you in the right direction, creating a theme that naturally follows your main theme. For example, sometimes you feel that after your main theme there should be a soft piano break with some sustained strings, or maybe you feel that it should be a build-up with staccato strings and like percussive drums. Sometimes you just feel what kind of direction is the right place to go. But then I go with those ideas and just experiment with different chords and melody elements and go from there, but other times you might hit a heavy writer's block. And this happens to me a lot of times on secondary themes and B themes, and based on the feedback from you guys, I get the impression that this happens to you guys as well. So at such times, it can be helpful to look at all the tools that I'm going to share with you now in this video, in the next video. So as I mentioned, the role of the B theme is often to be a contrasting element. This means that you need to differentiate this theme from the A theme. Because if you're using the same scales, the same dynamic, the same length of the notes, the same rhythms, the same chords in the B theme, it won't necessarily be as effective. It will then merely maybe sound too repetitive again and just confusing. Therefore, we should aim to make the B theme different from the main theme. That said, you don't want it to sound like you just threw in a random part of a different track. You want it to sound cohesive and connected. However, you will want some kind of difference between the two themes, so this can be done in several ways, both through composition and orchestration. And here are some of the main ways or the main things that I look at when I want to create contrasting themes. The first is rhythm. If you want a contrasting B theme, you can first start by looking at rhythm and making the rhythm of the theme different. For example, short notes in the main theme versus long notes in the B theme, or longer or quicker chord changes in the B theme. For example, if the chords are changing very slowly in the main theme, maybe have a more moving B theme with quicker chord changes. The next one is scales. For example, a minor scale melody versus a major scale melody. So if your main theme is a major theme, maybe you might think about creating a little minor contrasting B theme, because this change of emotion might give you the kind of contrast you desire in this kind of theme. Next we have instrumentation. And this is something we've been looking at already slightly, and I'm talking about a bigger or smaller instrumentation than the contrasting theme. So for example, in Everlasting, as we just listened to, in the B theme we have a smaller ensemble. It's only a harp, some sustained strings, and a piano. So we've been using instrumentation to create a contrast. Next, we also have complexity. And this basically means many layers versus not so many layers, for example. Now, what I mean is, if your main theme is very slow moving, very big, but it is not a lot of elements, it is just one big wall of sound playing chords and the melody for it, for example. And a contrast to that could be a 4-part or 4-layer, more complex middle section that builds up with a lot of movement and a lot of things going on if there's less things going on in the main theme. Or it can be the other way around. Maybe have a fairly complex main theme with a lot of layers, some ostinatos, some counter melodies, a melody, some moving chords, and so on. Maybe you want the complexity to be maybe you want it to be simpler in the B section. Maybe it's just some sustained pads and a simple melody. Or maybe no melody at all, just a few chords. So complexity can be also a good way to create contrast between two sections. And next we have dynamics, and this is fairly obvious and something we've been looking at already, and also applies to Everlasting as well as some of the songs we looked at in the previous video. And this is using a change in dynamics as a contrasting element. Again, in Everlasting, this is what I did in the B section, making that part a lot more quiet than the rest of them. And this is something you can see in a lot of different tracks that we have in front of us here as well. Everlasting, the quietest part is the B section to create contrast. In Farewell Life, which is a lot longer than the other ones, you can see there's a lot of contrasting breaks here, where it's a lot more quiet in these contrasting sections than the main sections, which you can see here. And these are all tracks we're going to look at very soon. This is also a B section of a Thomas Bergerson track. So, using dynamics is also a very, very powerful way and a very easy or simple way to do it. And then finally we have harmony. So just using basically different chords or quicker chord changes than on the main theme. So again, if you use 3 chords, 3 of the main chords like tonic, subdominant, and dominant in the main theme only, maybe you use different chords in the scale in the B theme, or maybe you use 5 or 6 chords to make it a bigger variety of chords in that theme. So all these things can be contrasts between the two themes. So we have rhythm, different scales, different instrumentation, complexity, dynamics, and harmony. And there's a lot of other things you can do as well, but these are some of the main ones that comes to my mind, at least, when I'm thinking about creating contrast between two themes. So what you should aim for in a beat theme is to make it feel connected yet contrasting. You don't want it to seem like you just cut out a random part of a different track and just threw it in there. At the same time, you don't want it to become too repetitive. So one way to do this is to use a motif or a variation from the main melody and change up the harmony, the speed, the instrumentation, and the dynamics. Or you can use some kind of development of your main motif, as we've been looking at in the melody chapter. So let's look at some specific things we can do. Let's revisit some tracks in the ABA form 1, which we looked at in the previous chapter and have